Hey, Facebook world. Welcome back to God and Country Garage. Today I'm going to talk about this little 377 that I had as a stock car engine. Well, I mean, it still is a stock car engine, but I guess today's video is going to be, I don't know if it's informational or more of just a rant, okay? Let's get into what I got. So here's the deal. I don't race anymore. I got money out of it, so I couldn't be highly competitive. I wrecked 2 cars in 3 years. And I just said enough is enough, but I still had a whole bunch of parts, engines, you can see chassis parts, stuff like that. And I had friends that raced and they were struggling and they said, can I borrow an engine? And it's a tough thing to borrow out, but this was a really good friend of mine. And the last thing I want to do is see a guy not race. The only thing keeping racing going is guys showing up to the track. So I said, sure, I got a motor you can borrow. It's not much. All this engine is, it's a 377. So what a 377 is, it's a 400 2-bolt main block with a 350 crank and bearing spacers in it. You know what I'm saying? There's not a lot in it. It's got 462 camel hump heads. But I mean, the rods were polished and shot peened. It's got a scat crank, TRW flat top pistons. I mean, the heads have been gasket matched, obviously an aluminum intake. It's got some good stuff, and it was always a very dependable engine. So I borrowed it to the guy. Anyway, he had it for like a year and a half, and I had been calling him and calling him and calling him. Racing season was over, and I was like, hey, what's up with the engine? Can I get it back? I had to basically track this thing down to get it back and hound him just to get my engine back. That being said, when he brought it back, I guess I was disappointed at the least. You know what I'm saying? If you borrow something, at least return it in somewhat usable condition. Now, he brought it back like March of this spring. He said that his driveway was frozen, he couldn't get to his garage and blah, blah, blah. It was an excuse after another. I finally got it back and don't want to borrow anything anymore to this guy. We're still friends, so the first thing that might be noticeable is just look at the general condition of this engine. It is filthy. And I mean, I get it. You're racing dirt. You're going to get dirt on it and everything. But I mean, it's horrible. It was leaking oil out of every crevice. Look at around the distributor. So when they pulled that distributor out, I don't know how much dirt is in there. You know, this thing's going to have to completely be tore down, rebuilt. When I was done with it, it had maybe 15 nights on it. So it was not used up, but I mean, it had been raced. They probably put another 15 to 20 nights, so it's due for a rebuild anyway. That's not the point, what I'm trying to make. The other day I was out here and I was looking at it and I was like, I suppose I should really look this engine over. And before even tearing into it, I just noticed so many things that were wrong with this engine that should not have been returned to me the way it was. Now, that being said, I know there's going to be some of you are like, well, then don't borrow your stuff out. Or you knew the abuse it was going to take because it's an engine. You know what I'm saying? And I get that. And I'm not opposed to that. I want to keep the sport of racing going, even if I'm not doing it. That's why I borrow stuff out. But it should not get to this point. Let me show you some of the stuff I noticed right off the bat. Like I said, for starters, look at the filth all over this. That's one thing. Secondly, these valve covers are notorious for the tubes will leak. See that? They're towers on there. But get a decent set of valve covers and put them on then. They gooped so much garbage on here trying to stop the oil from coming out. I mean, these valve covers are like $30 a pair. And I would have bought valve covers and put them on if they wanted, but they just were puking it out. Not only that, look at these breathers. All right, you can see these tubes are about this tall. Why is that breather all the way down? That breather is already, it's all the way down to the top of that tube. That thing ain't breathing worth a crap. So that's one of the first things I noticed. Secondly, this is not the oil pressure fitting I had in there. I always ran braided lines with good oil pressure gauges. They obviously didn't have a good oil pressure gauge. They ran them stupid little plastic lines, which is, in my mind, ridiculous for racing. That thing blows. You're getting hot oil all over inside your car or starting your engine on fire. So where's my good T-fitting that was in there for my braided line? That's gone. Also, if you look, well, I mean, they're not horrible, but I can tell like that freeze plug and this freeze plug, they're about ready to pop out. That's telling me this engine got hot. I guarantee it got hot. These guys neglected everything. Okay, keep ranting. Then, I don't know if you know how these work. These are spreader bars. They're supposed to spread the tightness down on your valve covers. When you tighten them like that, they're not doing anything anymore. These valve covers, I guarantee, are warped. The bolts are so tight. I mean, look at that one. It's not even touching anymore. You don't just keep cranking on these things. You know what I'm saying? When you put the engine in, obviously you're going to throw a timing light on it. And periodically, you're going to want to recheck the timing. You tell me if they could read anything off there. I guarantee this engine's never had a timing light. These things are buzzing like 6,800, 7,000, 7,200 RPM. They're not, you can tune them by ear, but they're not going to live tuned by ear. You got to put a light on them and set the timing. Here's another thing. In a stock car, a lot of times, guys might run a mid-plate. I always ran these little AFCO ears. What they do is, say, the dowels, you slide that on there, and then you bolt it to your chassis. I can't do it because it's on the engine stand, obviously, but the bolts, the bell housing bolts would go through there, and they'd be a solid rear motor mount. And then the transmission locates on there. Where's the longer pins? Did they lose them? They put short stock pins in there. For comparison, here's the plugs that they have in this 377 that they returned to me, and here's a 383 I had that got blown up. You can see how much longer them pins are, and that's the correct pin in that block when you're using a solid rear motor mount. Too small, correct. You tell me how you're going to locate a transmission on that. It's not even sticking out, which you can barely even see, but the back of that crank is beat up because the transmission is not running true to the center. Here's another thing. Okay, they obviously put a new filter on it, but they put a MicroGuard oil filter on there. You got to run good filters on these things and good oil. It's probably got like 10W30 O'Reilly's oil in it or something. Sure, go ahead, run that, but they're not going to live. This might be up for question. I could be wrong. I'm not an expert on everything, but I always ran water wetter in these things. They don't allow you to run antifreeze because, say, you blow an engine up, you're dumping antifreeze in the ground, but you can run water wetter. This thing is so rusted, I guarantee you there was nothing in. They did do something right. At least I told them when you bring it back, at least drain everything, pull the plugs out of the block so all the water's out of it. And they did that, which is good, and I appreciate it. But there is so many things overlooked on here. I mean, look at the oil in there. The valve seals must be burned right out of it because she was puking oil out of that cylinder. Here's another thing. Sure, these are good small block racing plugs. These are AR-135s, and I'm surprised they all match. They're probably like a 3-year-old set they found laying on the floor. But when I borrowed them, I told them, this engine, for whatever reason, the best plug to run in this is an Autolite 353. I believe it's like a Marine plug or like a Fiat V8 plug or whatever. But that's what this engine liked, was an Autolite 353. They're not a lot more, but they're just a little bit more expensive than these AR-135s, but they threw those in there. Did it hurt? Probably not, but listen, I borrowed you this engine. Just at least try to do what I asked with it. That and how much are valve cover gaskets? I mean, if the thing is leaking, change a gasket. I will guarantee you, I never did this. How many tubes of gasket sealer did they put on here? That's stupid. That's ridiculous. And you know what a lot of that is? because they over tighten these things. Like, ridiculous. Listen, I've been at the track. I've done crap to keep racing that night. You realize something's leaking and you know what I'm saying? But this is a return this engine to the guy I borrowed it from. Yeah, I get it. It's not like a Pro Power $50,000 late model motor or anything. You know, you'd probably spend $2 to $3 grand putting this little engine together. If you're putting it together yourself, you know what I'm saying? Just buying the parts. But that's not the point. You know what I'm saying? The other night when I was looking this thing over, I was like Crumb Petrie off a freaking Funny Farm. I was pretty well liquored up and pissed off by that point, you know? That being said, I mean, I guess there's two sides to every story. You could say, well, then don't borrow your stuff out anymore. And you're right, don't. I'm trying to be a sportsman and borrow stuff to guys that don't have it, you know, and keep cars at the track. Nobody wants to show up to a track and see like 9 cars battle it out for 12 laps. You know what I'm saying? You want to see 38, 40, 45 car fields with consies and heats and guys are beating and banging, but not abusing the crap you're borrowing. So what's the moral of the story? I guess if you're going to borrow stuff out, know who you're borrowing it to. And if you are borrowing it, at least return it in the condition that you borrowed it from. I mean, obviously it's going to be more used and more wore out, needing to rebuild. I get that, but this is a little beyond what I would think should be returned to me this way. That being said, there's flies in here. That being said, probably not going to borrow anything to them anymore. I mean, the engine wasn't the only thing they had. For almost 2 years, they had my digital scales, springs, a couple of mini starters. He borrowed my truck one time, my 1-ton diesel. And because of the stack in the back, it's going to smoke a little. When he borrowed it one day, when I got that thing back, I could not see out of the back window. He was beating the crap out of it, rolling coal every chance he could. So not everybody's going to be like that. I get it, and I'm not trying to be a crybaby. I'm trying to inform you and let you know if you're on either end of the spectrum. Be careful who you're borrowing stuff to and what you're borrowing them. And if you're borrowing stuff, respect it and return it the way it was. Use it, don't abuse it. Again, I know this engine was due to be tore down and rebuilt anyway. Now it's obviously, I don't even know what I'm going to get into when I take it apart. I mean, I'm guessing there's going to be oil pressure, neglection, or whatever you want to call it. I'm guessing they didn't pay attention. There's probably going to be a lot of scored bearings and stuff like that. It didn't blow up. Everything's there yet, you know, but it's going to have to be tore down, completely rebuilt. I got to find something to put it in. The last thing you want to do is leave an engine sit on a stand for years and years and years, which is one of the reasons I want to let him borrow it. But like I said, if you're going to use something, at least respect it and return it. Because guess what? It don't get borrowed out to you again. And as much as I want to keep the sport going and help another guy, I've borrowed parts, but I've returned them in the same condition I've gotten them. I don't know if I've ever borrowed a complete engine, and not all the guys will borrow you a complete engine because of this, but I wanted to do it to keep another guy racing. But it kind of bit me, and we're still friends, but there's going to be no borrowing going on anymore. So you can think I'm ranting, crying, whatever. I think I'm being rational with this. So what's the point of this video? I guess just to vent a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Whatever, we'll just kind of not look at this for a while until we can clean it up and put it back together. But I hope you learned a little bit, and at least keep in mind, like I say, if you borrow something, respect it. Thank you for watching. Have a good one.